In this video, I'm going to show you guys a couple of more advanced features that the action bar has. So we've already seen how to make buttons, we've seen how to make checkboxes and radio buttons, we've seen how to work with fragments. However, sometimes that's not enough. Now, it won't happen very often, but occasionally you're going to be stuck in a situation where you need to use an action bar, but you really need to get some sort of custom user interface element on it. Now, either that custom user interface element is the whole action bar itself, or maybe just a part of the action bar that you can expand and collapse. Either way, the action bar supports that feature. It supports being able to put custom views on it. And that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. We're going to take a look at how basically the ultimate action bar customization, where we can change virtually anything about it by creating our own views and our own little layouts that we can inject into it. So I guess let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you two different ways that you can introduce custom elements into the action bar. So let's go ahead and start off with creating a new application. And I don't know what to call it. Let's call it, I'm bad with names, Action Bar Custom Views. That's a good enough name, I suppose. We are going to start off with a blank activity. No reason to go through the process of making an activity manually, because we already know pretty much all of the stuff that the activity template comes with. So I'm just going to wait here and try to predict which monitor this is going to pop up on, because it has yet to appear. There you are. All right. So inside of our activity main, we are not too concerned. We are pretty much going to be exclusively playing with the action bar. And as you see right here, we're getting a bunch of these errors, quote unquote. It's just Gradle hasn't caught up yet and properly added a reference to all the appropriate jar files yet, so we're getting a bunch of undefined references. I'll leave this on the video just to show you guys that this sometimes does happen, and the solution here is to wait for Gradle to Gradle, or in the case that Gradle's already Gradled but it didn't quite work properly, you notice that specifically it's not loading the action bar activity package or the action bar activity class, therefore it's not loading the support package. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down here, I'm going to introduce a new line, and then I'm going to clear the line. I'm just doing that to trick IntelliJ into showing me this icon right up here, this bar up here that has this Sync Now button, and I'm going to select that. I'm sure you could have accomplished the same thing by right-clicking Build Gradle. And yeah, there's a synchronize, or I don't think that does what you think. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is by resyncing Gradle, we now have the application working. Again, I'm going to leave this on the video so you guys can get an idea of how to fix that if it ever happens to you. All right, so here's our main activity. So what I want to do here is, the first thing I want to show you guys is what if I wanted to replace the entirety of the action bar with something else, with my own custom layout, my own custom view. Well, that's actually pretty easy to do. Now, the first thing I got to do is, by the way, I'm doing this all in onCreate. You should put any sort of view, layout, creation sort of stuff in your onCreate method, and generally 99% of the time, you're going to be putting all that code after your setContentView method call. Anyway, so what's the first step that we have to do in order to customize our action bar? Well, it's actually fairly obvious. The first step is we have to acquire a reference to our action bar. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say action bar, of course with the capital A so IntelliSense works, and you'll notice right off the bat that we have two options. Now this is just like what we had with fragments. We have our support action bar and we have our normal action bar. Fortunately, the decision as to which one to use has already been made for us because we've already been using app.compat with their support action bar. So I'm going to select the support action bar and hit enter. And I'm going to call this variable action bar. And then I'm going to set it to get support action bar. Now you'll notice we have get action bar and get support action bar. The same thing with the fragment manager. Of course, in this case, unlike with the fragments, which we're using native fragments and not support fragments, in this case, we're using support action bar. So we use the get support action bar method. Now that we have a reference to our action bar, we can do really whatever we need to do with it. What I will want to go ahead and do, though, is I am going to mark this variable as final. Now, the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to be accessing this local variable from a closure later down the line of this method. I'm not worrying about my code being super pretty right now. I just want to get the point across. So we'll go ahead and mark this as final so I can access it in subsequent closures. So now that I've done that, let's go ahead and set its custom view. So what is a custom view? In this context, a custom view in the action bar is a view that's going to replace pretty much the entirety of the action bar. So I'm going to say action bar dot set custom view. And now you'll see we have 3 overloads. We have a view layout params, and an int. So it should be fairly obvious what each one of them do. The view expects a view object that we instantiate dynamically ourselves. Like, for example, I could say new text view if I wanted to. The view and layout parameters is the same thing, except we specify not only the view, but the layout parameters of the view. And finally, the int is going to be a reference to a layout XML file. So that's the one we're going to be using. I'm going to say r.layout. I'm going to go ahead and call this action_bar_custom view. Okay, so I could go ahead and create that custom view layout right now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it erroring right now just for a moment so I can finish the rest of this code that we need. And you'll, at least insofar as at least far enough to where we'll be able to see the custom view. Because by invoking set custom view, it's not going to show you the view right away. We're just specifying that if you were to show you yourself as a custom view, what view would it be? But we haven't told the action bar quite yet that we want it to be its custom view. Now, we do that by simply doing action bar dot set display options and passing in a flag, a list of flags. Now in this case, the flags I'm going to pass in are ActionBar.display_show_custom, or rather, the flag I'm going to pass in. So now what we're doing is we're saying ActionBar set display options display custom. We're now saying you know what your custom view is, because we told you that right here. Now I want you to replace your contents with that custom view. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead and create this layout. So I'm going to hit Alt-Enter and say create resource file. Now for the root element, I'm going to change that to an edit text. So I'm going to select edit text and... what are you complaining about? Must contain only lowercase. Derp. I messed up. It is going to be custom_view. I'll leave that in the video just to point out again that if you guys didn't know this already, the layout files are all resources that correspond to files on the hard drive need to be all underscore letters. So unlike a resource that is such as an ID, because an ID is a resource which can have uppercase and lowercase characters, anything that turns into a file, like a layout file, a menu, whatever, needs to be underscore only. Anyway, now that we've corrected that, and subsequently messed it up, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt-Enter again, and hit Enter again, and I'm going to change the root element in this case back to an edit text, and then I'll go ahead and hit Enter. And this will now generate my custom view. So, let's go ahead and do that. To emphasize that this is a view and not a view group, I'm going to self-terminate it, or self-close the tag. And there's not really a whole lot else that I really want to do with this edit text. Maybe give it a hint. Maybe say, hint is title. So that's the hint of our edit text. Now we can make this layout as complicated as we want to. We can introduce views and view groups and all sorts of anything we want. I mean, the whole view system in Android is super modular, and we can put in as complex or as simple as a view that we want. Of course, a more complex view wouldn't be necessarily appropriate for something like an action bar, because an action bar has such limited space. An edit text is a very common thing that we may want to put inside of an action bar, such as, for example, a web browser. Anyway, let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens with our action bar. See what it looks like now that we've replaced its content. We've replaced its title with a custom view. Let's go ahead and specify to use the same device. And let's hit OK. And check that out. You see up here, instead of having a title, well, it still says title, but instead of having an actual title that shows the name of the app or the name of the activity, we now have an edit text that I can click on and actually type in. Not only that, you'll notice that my settings button is still there. Basically, this custom view replaced my title. All right, so that's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and show a little bit more of a practical example. I want to go ahead and make it so I can type in a title here. So I can type in whoa and stuff and hit enter. And when I hit enter, what I want to have happen is I want it to make the custom view go away and change the title of the action bar to whatever I typed in. So kind of make it behave like a browser application. So let's come back here, and how do we go about doing that? So we've introduced the custom view. We have that edit text being instantiated and being placed in the action bar and being set to visible. But how do we interact with it? How do we get a reference to that object? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, what we can do here is we can get the custom view back as a view object. So I can say edit text action bar, I don't know what to call this, action bar edit text, sure, why not, equals cast to edit text, and then action bar dot get custom view. Now see, get custom view returns a view object. So now our view has been inflated, and it's being displayed, but regardless if it was being displayed or not is irrelevant. We can now get a reference to that view, and we can cast it into the object that it represents. Now, of course, if we had a more complex example where we had a view group in here and multiple views in a hierarchy, we may want to instead do a find view by ID. But in this particular case, the entirety of the custom view is in this one object, this one edit text. So we can simply cast it to an edit text and then alias it out into a local variable. Now that we have access to it as a reference, we can manipulate it in any way we want. In particular, we can add event handlers to it so we can determine when the enter key is pressed. So what I want to do here is I'm going to say action bar edit text dot set on editor action listener. And then I'm going to pass in a new anonymous inner class, which is going to be a class that implements the on editor action listener interface. So I can type that in, I can simply hit enter, and now I have this code automatically generated for me. So what I'm going to do here is whenever the on editor action method is invoked, whenever the user hits what's considered to be the done concept of this edit text. In this context, it's going to be whenever we hit the enter key. What I want to have happen is I want the action bar's title to be set to whatever was typed into the text field. Then I want the custom view to disappear and be replaced with our view. Our title view. So what I'm going to do here is I'm first going to say action bar dot set title. So this is another example of something I really wanted to show you guys. You can override the title of the action bar very simply by A, getting a reference to the action bar, and B, invoking the set title method. So now I can invoke set title. By the way, I do want to make a call out to all the way back into earlier in this video when I declared this local variable as final. For people who aren't very or don't know much Java, if I didn't declare this local variable as final, then I would not be able to access it within this closure. So if you guys don't have this declared as final and you're getting an error right here saying something about blah, 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 action bar can't be used, that's because it's not declared as final. Anyway, what do we want to set the title to? Well, we want to set the title to our action bar edit text.get text, which I love how it's like, hey, remember how early in this video how I preemptively marked this local variable as final, and then now I need to access another local variable from within closure, and I totally forgot to preemptively mark it as final? Well, no, I did that on purpose. You did not hear the last sentence, because I'm going to show you that you can do this actually automatically within the IDE. So check this out. Basically, I want to set the title to whatever my text of my action bar edit text is. You'll notice it's a local variable that's outside of the closure, meaning it's inaccessible because it's not marked as final. Well, I can go ahead and say action bar edit text, and I can just hit enter. By hitting enter, notice how the keyword final appeared. Now I really want to avoid doing that in general when I'm on video, because having code appear in places that I'm not editing makes things really confusing. But I really wanted to point out at least once that you can do this without preemptively marking your local variables as final. Anyway, we're setting the title to actionBarEditText.getText. And then that should be enough. Then what I want to do is I want to remove my custom view. To remove my custom view, I simply say actionbar.setDisplayOptions, passing in actionbar.displayShowTitle. So what's going on here? Basically, setting display options replaces the entirety of the options with whatever we pass in. Therefore, by saying actionbar.displayShowTitle, we are replacing what used to be there, which was actionbar.display_show_custom. So we don't have to manually go in and say, actionbar, no longer display the custom view, and now show the title. Instead, we can say, overwrite what you were displaying before with displayShowTitle. All right, let's go ahead and hit play and see what we get. All right, so we have our edit text at the top, and I'm going to type in "this is a title!" and hit enter. Check that out. "This is a title" is now the title of the action bar. And now note that our custom view has gone away. So anyway, that's just a really quick example. I just wanted to get that out of the way. I want to show you guys most of the most important functionality of the action bar. If you guys want to really dig in deep on this and look at more examples and look at more different ways you can work with the action bar, I highly recommend checking the docs out. But I at least wanted to make you guys aware of things you can do with this. So this is, again, a really cool example of how we can pretty much replace the entire title part of the action bar with whatever custom view that we want. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you guys is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to show you guys what's possible here. I'm not going to show you guys an example of how to make your own. Basically, what I want to show you is how you can have a button up here on the action bar that when you click it, expands into its own control and takes up the rest of the action bar. So basically, like a search widget, like you might hit the search button, and the search button might turn into a big text field that appears on your action bar. I just want to show you guys that this is possible. If you want to learn how to do this yourself, I, again, recommend checking out the docs. It's kind of an edge case sort of thing. It's useful to know about and to know where to find out more if you ever need it. But anyway, how do we do that? How do we specify that? Well, we start off by opening up our menu resource. Inside of our menu resource, I can define a custom item that has what's called a custom view. So let me go ahead and fix all these attributes so they stop annoying me. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new item. I'm not going to worry about its ID. I'm going to give it a title of search. I'm going to give it a show as action always, and I'm going to make sure to use the app namespace, not the Android namespace. And I'm going to give it an icon of map IC launcher. Now, there's another thing that I want to put in here, and that is basically what it's going to do is, you saw how our action bar can have a custom view, and it can switch between normal view and custom view? Well, the same thing can be done with menu items. Menu items can be switched between their action views and their normal views. But except for taking up the whole action bar and only having one per action bar, each item can have its own little custom view in it. Now, you can specify its custom view in one of two ways. I can specify it as a layout if I wanted to. For example, by using the action layout parameter, or rather attribute, or I can specify it as the action view class. Either one will work. The action view class will be a class that extends the view class and that displays or handles all the view logic for that particular action view. The action view layout, or the action layout, does what you'd expect it to. It points to an XML file that will be used and inflated in order to make this action view. What I'm going to do is to show you guys an example here, just a really quick example. I'm going to use the action class and use the action view class, and use an action view class that's going to be already built into the SDK. So what I'm going to do is for the action view class, I'm going to go ahead and specify android.support.v7.widget.searchView. And what that's going to do is it's going to point to a class inside the support library that's going to be an action view for a search widget. Now, there's a bunch of different ways we can customize it, and we can get a reference to it in our code, and we can do all the fun stuff that we want to do with it. I'm not going to worry about any of that sort of stuff, but I will show you guys it in action so you can get an idea of what you can do with action views. Before I do that, of course, I do need to point out that there is a mistake in the code. And that is, I'm referencing the Android namespace for this particular action view class. Since we're using the application bar compatibility app_compat library, we can't use the Android namespace to reference this attribute. Instead, I'm going to use app. We talked about this earlier when we dealt with our menu resources in the past, so if you want to hear about what the difference between the two namespaces are, just rewind a couple of videos when we talk about menu items. But now that I've done that, let's go ahead and hit play. And I'll show you guys an example of what you can do. So check this out. So if I click on this item, check out what happens. Notice how when I click on the search bar, the search button, the search action bar, the entirety of where my custom view was gets replaced with the search custom view. And I can close it out by hitting the X button. Let me go ahead and get rid of my custom view first. I'm going to say, hey there. So now my custom view is gone on my action bar, and all I'm left with is this search bar, this search view. And again, I click on it, I get a search bar. So that's an example of what you can do with action views. You can click on it, you can have the action view be toggled from being displayed to not being displayed. And when it's displayed, it'll show a custom view that'll take the rest of your title out. So that's a really handy way in order to do stuff, specifically search. I think search is like one of the main reasons why this feature was even conceived. But anyway, what's cool about that is you can do your own action views. You can do your own action view layouts, you can do your own action view classes, and you can customize your action bar in so many different ways by taking advantage of these more advanced features. However, that being said, it's not often you're going to be needing these features, so that's why I'm not going to spend a whole lot more, really any more time discussing them. I just want to make you guys aware of their existence, what you can do and what you can do with them, and the terminology you'd need to look at the docs if you ever do need them. Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to do in this video. We saw some more advanced uses of the action bar, and yeah, talked about some more advanced user interface scenarios. So I guess we will see you in the next video.